I had a career that paid a lot, but I was extremely unhappy. Who are you living for? Are you living for them or are you living for yourself?
When you talk about like your pursuit of happiness, it's really just being there, ready to accept and being aware of what you want and allowing yourself to pursue that, you know?
I remember the day that I quit, I really bodily remember how happy I was.
I always feel that we gravitate towards what we want as long as fear does not consume us.
You really never know what that life's gonna look like until you live it. I think nothing is more important than your happiness.
Hey everybody, and welcome to A Backpacker's Diary. My name's Kass, and today I have a guest. This is my lovely cousin, Saria.
Hello.
So Saria is actually my second cousin. So interestingly enough, like our family is from Mexico, but you're half Mexican and
half Indian.
half Indian.
Yes. Very strange mix. I've only met one of my kind just recently, actually. But yeah, we're in the woods right now, and
We're in Chino Hills, California.
Yeah.
It's not much going on here. Like hometown feels kind of like a little bit of a hometown. So this is a traveling podcast, and the reason I've invited Sadia here is because, for one, traveling has played a really important role in my life, and I give a lot of credit to Sadia for really impacting me and motivating me to kind of go on this crazy adventure and journey. So I wanted to talk to Sadia more about like where we came from, like where was our headspace, because Sadia's done some traveling as well, and back in 2020 during the COVID, everybody was stuck here, and we spent a lot of time just going on hikes, talking to each other, talking about how where we were was not where we wanted to be, and I just kind of want to digest that a little bit and talk about how we ended up just stepping outside of our realm and now kind of just randomly to a bunch of places.
Definitely the unconventional path, I'd say. But yeah, it started from like us having those conversations together. Just we would go on hikes in this area, which I think that's why this space is pretty. I used to live around here, and I think it like started with just conversation. At the time, I was working as a loan officer, which, if you don't know what that is, it's kind of in the same realm as like, I don't know. I usually say like real estate and like, you know, houses, homes. And when I had started working there, and I got into that space from a family connection, but when I started working there, I ended up being about 17, working as an assistant. I left high school like a year early, and I just went I went to college, and then I left college to start working full time in this space at a very young age. I was probably like one of the youngest. I was one of the youngest.
So already unconventional, leaves high school a whole year early.
Yeah.
And then goes to college
For like
just 2 seconds. Quits college and then starts working in a professional field as a loan officer, which is a big career job.
Yes.
So we went years without talking to each other. Not for any malice, just like, you know, you're living your own lives. And then we reconnected during COVID. And I had just graduated with my bachelor's and so I was looking for a career, I guess. Sadia was now in a career, and I was like, wow, so you're about 4 years younger than me, I think? Yeah. So even though Sadia's younger than me, we were like kind of in the same life stage, so we were able to kind of just share where we were at, and that's kind of where it started. And like for me, I feel like I had this perception of like, well, when you grow up, you have this idea that you got to go to school. That's the only thing you have in your head, and as soon as school ends, then you realize like, oh my gosh, like I have the rest of my life to live. What am I gonna make of it? What am I gonna do? So after you left college, you went to go work as a loan officer, which, like as you said, is in the real estate realm. You're essentially approving people for loans to purchase homes.
Yeah.
Which at 18, I can't even think about real estate. I can't even think about buying a house. You ended up there because of a family member.
Yeah, I think it never was like the driving force was never out of passion or like I thought like this is my specific path. It kind of was just there. It was kind of the almost the easiest path at the time. Just having a connection in that space and also not knowing where to go at that time. So I then decided, okay, you know, this is a good option. The pay was very, very good, and I knew that I could just study for this and get my license. And so I did. So I studied, I got my license, and I started as an assistant at 17, and then at 18 I fully got my loan officer license and began to work full time amongst 30, 40-year-olds. So that was a really interesting space to be in, as you can
It's like
imagine.
you're just a kid.
Yeah, I'm just a kid, and like my friends would be going out with, like, oh, you should come with us, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, like I have to work. So at 18, when everyone's going out or like hanging out with friends, I was kind of stuck in this little bubble of life. And it was about an hour drive as well, so it was kind of a big chunk of the 9 to 5.
But you were definitely bankrolling for a bit.
Yeah, I was good. Yeah, financially, I didn't know what to do with that either, because people are there trying to support their families and trying to pay for their own homes, and I'm there kind of just
Dreaming.
yeah,
Are thinking about,
just
okay,
funding.
wait a second, I got all this money in the bank now. What do I do with this? And I think when you are young, you're kind of looking at your life ahead of you and thinking like, I really do have lots of opportunity. What should I make of it? So in this place of your life, you're in a position where you have a stable job, you have good money coming in. But some of the things that we talked about was like our perception of money. And for me, I've always kind of hated the idea of money. Like I understand the importance of it because you need that to sustain yourself. But I always felt like people make money their end goal versus choosing life before that. So can you kind of describe how the perception of money played into having that loan officing job?
Yeah. So, I began to pay attention to the people around me as I was working. And I wouldn't say I had like friends in this space. But as I paid attention to the way, people thought, I still innately knew that I don't care to have the nicest car, I don't care to have the nicest things. I kind of was just like moving with this and knowing that, like, oh, okay, this is a good opportunity, and people my age aren't making this. But as I began to pay attention to conversations around me, it was very much like a lot of them, I won't say all of them, but a lot of them believed that money was their main value that they had. And if they didn't have this, if they didn't have money, then they're kind of left with this. And I would think about that. I'm like, what are they left with if their money is taken away? And they kind of put it at their main as their main priority. And when I had gotten my car, because I needed a car, and it was my very first car, I got a Honda Civic. And I remember, like, I bought it. Yeah, Honda Civic, just sure. I just wanted something to last, and like I got my car and I go to work, and I remember like one of the main conversations was like, oh, okay, when are you getting your new car? And I was like, this is my new car, like this is right off the lot, like this is the new car, like I'm proud of this, at 18 to be able to even like purchase this. And they were constantly like, yeah, but like what about your next one? And it was just this really big interest on what's the newest and next thing. Like, some of them would buy something and they're like, okay, they have this perfect condition, and they're like, where's the next one? And it's almost like you're filling this void that you're trying to fill with money. But if that's the concept, then it really is never enough.
Or materialism.
Yeah, or materialism.
Yeah.
Because then when does it stop? Like, if that's the driving force, when are you fulfilled? Because then no amount of money is going to get you to that point.
Exactly. So I feel like that really preaches to me, because I'm not a materialistic person. I've never been a materialistic person, never craved those things. But I've also never been in a position where I've had like good amount of money coming in. So I feel like for you kind of validated that idea. Like, okay, I'm not in a position where I have money, but I don't think that I would be happy with just money in itself. So if not money, then like what brings happiness?
A lot of people perceive success as like having a career that pays a lot. But I think this is a prime example of, I had a career that paid a lot, but I was extremely unhappy. And I remember people would tell me like, congratulations, like constant praise. And even then I never understood it. I never felt like I could receive that praise, because internally I was extremely unhappy, burnt out. I would just go home and like just sleep and wake up and repeat again, and constantly stressed. And at a young age, like that really does a number on you.
Yeah. All right, so now we are 4 years later, right? this is where kind of where we were at, right? We'd meet up, talk about, money's not everything. We had dreams. What did some of those dreams look like for you?
I always knew I wanted to experience more in terms of traveling. I had not traveled much prior to leaving that job. And so that was one of my main dreams. Yeah.
Yeah. Why travel? What does that do for you?
Um I feel like I learned after quitting. I ended up learning what that meant to me. It was this concept that people talk about that like you need to travel before, this age or like travel young. It's like this constant thing. Everyone's like travel young, go experience something. And I heard that, when you hear it enough, you're like, okay, I guess I should probably, venture and do something like this. So, I then decided I was at that job for about 2 years, I want to say 2 years.
Okay.
3 years if I'm counting the year prior as an assistant. And I remember I had a moment where I decided, like, okay, I don't want to work here. I'm going to give myself maybe another year. And when you talk about years in numbers, it sounds very short. Like, it sounds very, okay, like one more year, that's it. But the actual, like, living a year out
Yeah.
is a lifetime.
Especially if you're not enjoying it.
Especially if you're not
dreading every single day.
I feel like as soon as you start to look at a calendar and you start to get really specific on the days of the calendar opposed to like, this is just a day,
Yeah.
and you start counting it down, then you're not really being present. Because now you're waiting for something to end. Like it's almost like your time in between doesn't matter because you're waiting for the end goal of something. And I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember that. You showed me like on your calendar, you put it in your calendar like the day you're going to quit. So this was very like premeditated.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to quit.
And I knew, yeah. So I knew that was like, okay, I'm going to, and I told it to my closer, coworkers at the time. I was like, okay, this is gonna happen. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, I want to too. And I was like, yeah, okay. So this was the day, and I never reached that day. Like I never made it to the day that I said I was gonna end it up.
Yeah.
Because I began to realize in this waiting period, already I'm mentally checked out. I'm already done. And if you're already mentally checked out, those days are even longer. So I decided even sooner. I gave myself a sooner date. And I was like, okay, this is going to be the new date. It's not going to be a year. I think I only gave myself like another.
I think you missed about a couple of months. I remember getting the text and then I was like, oh wow, that was a lot sooner than expected, and I feel like time moves so slow. Moves so slow when you're not enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it just feels like I just need to get to the next day. You're just living to get to the next day, the next
Yeah.
day, the next week, the next month. And it's like what you said, like, what about the now? Like,
Yeah.
how much do you allow yourself to live right now?
Yeah, because how much time are you wasting if you only live at those big moments, Like you have to somehow figure out a way to expand your days a little bit more, instead of like I'm just looking forward to like a specific weekend. And so I think at that time I gave myself my quit date. I was really excited about it. Like I just remember being almost, you're mentally checked out at this point. I'm mentally like, okay, like this is like I'm finishing through. I'm doing all my work because I know I have to, but I knew this was gonna be the date. And I remember telling, other people in my life, family, that I was going to quit. And when I said that to people, I received two types of responses. I received, very good, like excited. I'm sure you gave me like, you're like, yeah, you're all for it.
Quit that.
Yeah,
Quit the life that you don't love.
so it's like an excitement, if you care and you want someone to be happy and you see that they're visibly unhappy, all you want is like make the choice to make you happy. So I did have like the close people at the time that were like that, and then I did receive the opposite response where it was like, you're making the biggest mistake. How could you throw away this career? How could you throw away this big career? Like you're gonna lose all your money, and like it was just all of these negative thoughts, right? And I began to think about that, and I was like, okay, there's a possibility I'm gonna lose my money, right? Like money, I always knew, even working it, I never saw it as this final, like I'm always gonna have this, because I was unhappy there. And I think I already knew that at some point this isn't gonna last for me. So I already didn't see this concept of money as being this thing that's gonna last like throughout my lifetime. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is something I have now, but I'm not super attached to it. And I remember thinking of people saying, I'm going to throw my life away. But one of the things I try to remember is from those times of having conversations with people and them saying, giving me praise or being happy for me that I was in something like this, they never have to live those days. So those days on the calendar that you're counting down, if you're just living those out so that you can have that one moment of praise from someone and that one moment of someone congratulating you, then who are you living for? Are you living for them or are you living for yourself? So I think that was one of the things I thought about. And I was like, no, I'm going to make the decision that makes me the happiest because I get to deal with the consequences and the life after.
Right.
And I was like, and anything that comes after, like sitting in that uncomfortability is still 20,000 times better than me sitting here unhappy, burnt out, and living the life that I don't think I'm supposed to.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I'm all about just pursuing what makes you happy. And I know that's privilege in saying, but we are blessed with like the opportunity to make these choices. And you know, life has been challenging at times because I have not prioritized money, but I've made it through. And ultimately, I make sure I feed myself every day. Make sure I've somewhat got a place to sleep, and I've been able to travel like crazy. And you've done a lot of traveling since then as well. So actually, can you explain what life after quitting has been like? What have you been up to? How has that changed?
Yeah.
Did you succeed at pursuing your dreams?
I think it's no matter what, it doesn't matter what it is, it's a constant journey. As soon as you find the thing that you do enjoy, it's still a journey after that. If I were to say, am I happier than that specific time? Absolutely. Like, and I don't know the type of person I would be right now if I hadn't made that decision. And so life after quitting, I remember the day that I quit, I really like bodily remember how happy I was. Like I was extremely excited. I did it very nicely, kindly to everyone. And you know, some people already knew. So once I left, I got in my car, I took one last look at that little like corporate building and I got in my car and I drove off and I just remember feeling like just like like ecstasy, just extremely happy. And so life after quitting, you're always riding that wave, you know. It's like coming back from anything big in your life. You know, you're riding the wave of emotions, of excitement, of the possibilities. You eventually reach a standstill with that, and I think that's for anything. When I come back from a trip, you know, I'm always like, okay, we're reaching a place of thought. And I think those at that point is extremely important too, because you do need to think about, okay, what are my next steps? What am I enjoying in life? What path do I want to proceed with? And so at the time, I remember I was like, okay, I want to go travel. That was my main thing. I was like, I want to go travel. This is extremely important to me. And I began a series of travels that I went on. For me, it gets bundled up in each other and when I went, but I got to go to Europe, Mexico, I've been to
Japan.
I'm like forgetting.
Italy's a favorite. Italy, I remember we were like teenagers, like having a sleepover.
And I could talk about it, yeah.
You were probably like 13, 14, talking about like, oh, I want to go to Italy. Like if I could live in any other country, it'd be Italy.
100%. And I remember like going on these trips, on these travels. And again, like extremely lucky and grateful to have even been able to go on these trips. I know it's everyone's situation is different and some people don't have the interest in traveling, or maybe like instead of traveling they dream to pursue something else, like another career, another just anything that maybe they're a little too afraid to do at this time. So I know that my specific thing was traveling at the time, but it shifts and you never know what the next thing will be or what that interest is if you don't venture down a new path and see what comes out the other end.
And I think that's what's important. It's about open-mindedness. It's about the willingness to pursue that, right? Because right now our interest may be to travel and see the world. But just as much as it takes a lot of courage to step outside your comfort zone and literally step into a different country, it takes a lot of courage to also step into your next life stage. But I feel like these experiences has really like built me up and has kind of like put a lot of courage in me to be ready for that when I want that. And I think when you talk about like your pursuit of happiness, it's really just being there ready to accept and being aware of what you want and allowing yourself to pursue that, you know? So it's not, for me, it's never been that travel is the end all be all, that is the secret to happiness, because certainly it's not, and it's not always a happy time, you know? Um, but for me, it's about allowing yourself to have the courage to pursue what you want in life. And that's what I feel like we don't all allow ourselves. I constantly say this, but like I always feel that we gravitate towards what we want as long as fear does not consume us. So it's like really just allowing yourself to have that courage and just to like believe that you can. So
and accepting that unknown.
and exactly. That's scary.
Yeah.
That is extremely scary. So
It's always scary, but I think if one of the things after traveling, I had to figure out, you know, you can't travel forever. Financials, I already knew they were depleting at this time. And I was like, okay, can't do it. I'm plummeting at a very fast rate. Travel's expensive. So I remember just like sitting down and it's like, okay, what do I want to pursue? Like if I were to think of a new realm, a new world to enter into, what makes sense for me? What do I resonate with? And those were kind of the initial thoughts because I didn't have a specific idea. I wasn't young and had a dream. You know, I think that's one of the things a lot of people's, you know, get upset by is like, oh, I didn't have this specific dream when I was little and now I don't know what to do with it.
You see, that's where I find it problematic because I was actually laughing with a friend because we found some like questions we were on a road trip. So one of the questions was like, what's your dream job? And we just started laughing. And I was like, we literally don't have that dream job. I have a dream life. I think that's what my issue with I guess just how we perceive the world is like I feel like we're instilled to think of like what job do I want, what career do I want versus thinking about what life do I want, because really like this whole economy is all man-made, right? But life is not. So thinking about dream job and dream life, obviously you do need some kind of money, so I feel like you've kind of have combined the two and are kind of pursuing a path, like kind of a career or job per se. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
I think, so when I was in my limbo states between travels, because that's, you know, that's a time of deep thought and reflection, and I think those times, they're not always like the most glorious and happy moments. Even when you're traveling, I think it's the same. But those lows or those, you know, intense emotional times, I think are extremely important in order to pivot. Because if you don't experience that low, then you can't go into deep reflection. But so I think
that's really good, you know, because a lot of times we get low and then we just kind of sit with it like, no, it's over.
But I don't really view it as that now. You know, it's hard to see it when you're in it, but I think when it's over and when you're on the outside, you really see that those times are extremely necessary to pivot. So when I reached a point like that, I was thinking about, you know, where am I going from here? What's next? And a friend of mine had said, what about film school? And I thought about that because I did like acting when I was younger, just like briefly, and like just fun stuff and just like the creative realm. And that's kind of how I viewed it, as like, okay, like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything specific. I don't have anything specific, but you might meet interesting people there. Seems like an interesting concept that I don't know much about. Like it would be cool to go. So I then decided to go to film school, which is a big commitment because, as we know, it's not a lot. It's not a cheap place to go to.
It's not a cheap place to go to.
My money is depleting. It's at a rapid rate.
So what's the shortness that you secure a
for
job?
Sure. There's no shortness. So there was no guarantee. And I still decided, okay, I'm gonna pursue.
Dove right in.
I dove right in. So I signed up. I made a short film with my friend, and luckily he just helped me out with everything. We did it. I got a camera. I just recorded extremely. I don't know what I'm doing. Unprofessional. I end up.
That's how you improve. Right?
Yeah, that's how you improve. That's how you start, right? It wouldn't make sense if I knew everything about this camera, if I knew everything about this realm. That's kind of what I was there to figure out. So I submit my film. I ended up getting a tuition award for it, for being like a well-made short film for entering. So that was surprising for me. But so I ended up going to film school, and I begin my semesters there. I meet amazing people. and I made like a best friend there that I still know today,
Yeah.
who happened to be from Italy.
Oh my
Straight
god.
from Italy. I know, it's just the manifestations, right? Yeah. So I met her, and I remember just being like drawn to just be friends with
Super
her.
Italian.
And we all, yeah, super Italian, and to speak to her about that because I had gone on my trip, so I had stuff to talk about. So we ended up becoming very close friends still to this day. And some of my other friends I still talk to today as well. I begin the process of film school, and as I'm proceeding and learning, I'm also starting to learn that I don't necessarily feel like I'm gaining the most from this experience.
Okay.
So I reach another point of, okay, am I where I'm supposed to be at right now? A time of reflection. And my money was depleting very fast. There were, new semesters on the way.
Right.
And I remember really thinking about if this is right for me. And I decided that going down this path without a secure job at the end of it, while losing my money, is probably not the way to go. I have a lot of faith on my connection ability with people. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take what I've learned here
And your networking.
and my networking and my friends, and I'm going to continue to work. That was, it was never like I'm going to do nothing after this. I was like, okay, I'm going to take what I know. I can't afford the next semesters here. So I'm going to take what I know. I'm going to offer to help and be in any space that I can that is still involved in this. And that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah. And so you're still working towards that. You're still working towards right now actively. You're in the field, still trying to promote yourself.
So still working and still doing anything that is in the creative realm. And that was the biggest thing. I had no idea what the I had no idea what that looks like. Now that I knew what it looked like, I knew that my people and the people that I resonate the most are in this realm. So as I began to go on various sets, just saying, I'll help out, whatever you need me to do. I did my own personal work. I did with my camera that I have now. So I just continued to work. And
you've showed me your stuff. So like seeing the stuff that you sent me like at the beginning towards where it's at now, I'm like, wow, this is right. I don't even know. I know. I feel like I'm overly supported, so I'm always like, oh, good job, But if I'm being honest, in the comparisons, like you've gotten so good.
Yeah.
And some of your work, like the color you use, and I don't know. It's just like I'm like, that's my cut. Yeah, I'm like, that's my cut.
It's a constant process. Like you're always reaching these points of like, okay, I can improve here, or you're gonna meet people that are much better at something or maybe more advanced. And I don't really see that as being a specific discouragement. And I really do have to give accolades to the people that I met in that realm. I happen to meet extremely supportive people later that year who are now my closest friend group. I wouldn't have met anybody had it not been for making that decision to go to film school, to go then on various sets, to meet friends on sets who have now become my closest people.
So now you've gained community in a space that you really appreciate and enjoy. And can you think about, like, just compare the community you are now with these creatives versus the community you were with, back to being a loan officer, it's different, know? I mean, and I'm assuming you've told me before, these are like lifelong friends that you envision.
Yeah. So I agree. And I think that's the key word, is community. I don't think I could say I had a really big community at the time that I was working there. It's a little more isolating. Maybe there are coworkers, but we don't share the same exact passion. And so that's how I was in my previous job. I didn't share a passion with the people I was working with. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean that we didn't get along.
But you're just existing.
But I'm just existing in the space.
Not living.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think when I began to make friends in this new space, it then turned into my choice. Like, it was my choice to be around these people. Everything that I did to get here is now my choice. And you seem to relate to those people more because you're both sharing this unconventional path and this deep want for something more. We're all venturing into unknown. It's not this, easy set path. This is your end goal. This is going to happen. We all have no idea what's going to happen, but we have an excitement for that. And we have an excitement for there's endless possibilities.
Yeah.
And now we've expanded our ceiling. my ceiling was extremely short before I could see where it end if if I stayed in that.
Okay, so just to kind of like close out this podcast, which thank you so much for taking the time to do that. Do you have any advice to somebody who's kind of in that position in their life where they want to pursue something greater or something that interests them? Maybe it's not conventional, but they're just kind of facing that fear of what if it doesn't work out, or what if I just need to stay where I'm at?
I would say you really never know what that life's gonna look like until you live it. And as soon as you make that decision, even though it's a little bit uncomfortable, and maybe people around you don't agree with it, I think nothing is more important than your happiness. So remove all other factors and really check in with yourself and say, like, am I happy here? Is this enjoyable to me? Is this something I want to do every day forever?
Yeah.
And if that is a daunting idea to you, then it's probably the right move to pick something else and to venture in. And I think, like, the people that you meet, the new experiences that you'll have, it's all worth it in the end. And remember that, like, you're the only one that gets to live your life and no one else has to do that. You get to spend every day with yourself. So I think it's a good move to maybe go in that direction.
Well, there you go. Thanks for being a part of the pod.
Of course, it's getting cold out here.
It's getting really cold, yeah. Thank you for being part of the podcast. So again, this is my cousin Saria. Used to be a loan officer in a corporate office and just flipped her life upside down. And
Now we're doing a little bit of everything.
a little bit of everything, a little travel.
Yeah, a little traveling,
Really
creative realm,
And
and
most importantly in my life, really encouraging.
yeah,
So,
I'm glad.
all right. So yeah, anyways, yeah, we're in California and this is the end of this podcast.
As the sun's going down and it's time to eat.
Bye. That was an alright ending, I think.
I think so.